Troy?
We'll pass Mel's name here along. And Jeannie will get you a name.
All right.
That'll be the nice one.
So with the assumption of the vice chair, we now move on to the next order of business, which is the appointment of the district clerk. School law requires the school board take official action to appoint the school clerk each year. And Mrs. Morgan, it is recommended that she is the clerk because she's done a very nice job for the school district in this capacity.
I'll move that we appoint Jeannie Morgan as Florence-Carlton School District Clerk for the next school year.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you for coming on board and taking us on.
Oh, me?
You.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very enjoyable, I've learned a lot.
Hopefully this coming year will be, you'll feel more comfortable.
Yes, I'm hoping so too.
Okay. All right, so call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have issues that arise in the school that may need a compliance officer. So if we have complaints from within that students feel like they are being discriminated against, or if teachers feel like they're being discriminated against, we have to have an independent entity outside of the supervisor's role. And so Allison Bristow has agreed to receive the training for Title IX officer and act in this capacity for the school district.
Move to appoint Allison Bristow as the Florence-Carlton School Title IX Compliance Officer for the 2013-2014 school year.
Discussion? Maybe say a word about this part of the Title IX versus the,
Yeah, this is different. This is different from when a parent files a Title IX complaint. This is really an internal mechanism for controlling issues when we have students or teachers or employees that feel like there are issues in the school that require the attention of an outside agency to look at. And so the officer does the investigation. For example, if you have a student that says another student is sexually harassing them, then this falls into a Title IX issue that requires investigation, and that's when you bring the Title IX compliance officer in to conduct that investigation for those reasons, as well as maybe you have a female employee that is being sexually harassed by a male supervisor, then they have a place to go, which would not be a supervisor's position to file their concerns or complaints.
and it would be this kind of action, or this kind of situation where the board's Title IX committee would become involved if necessary, right?
Correct.
Okay, just to put a little clarity on that. Okay, so we have a second, and we've had some discussion. Any other discussion? Call for question. All those in favor? Aye, and thank you to Ms. Bristow for stepping up on that.
And at this time, we have the appointment of standing committees. As you see below are the committees from last year, and take action to fill each of the committee spots.
Okay, so somehow my name seems to be on here more than Vicky's. I don't know how that happened. So we're gonna fix that. I know, what did I say? I must have hit my head.
But see, I was also, but we also have that, the policy manual, where but that's not.
That's not here.
That's not really
And
here,
I
but
was
you
on
took that
that.
up,
I
you
was
took
on
that
that.
on, thank you so much.
Okay.
So I guess I would say that, that I would like everybody to say what they might be interested in doing. I'll say that I'm still interested in being on budget and finance, and I can stay with negotiations. Other than that, everybody else take a stab. So everybody say what they'd like to do, and then let's kind of go from there.
I'll stay on the book with you.
Okay?
I'm happy where I'm at.
I could go on the book with you.
Okay?
Title IX I was on, I don't remember us doing anything, but.
You know, we haven't. I mean, we just
But
haven't
just
had a
in
lot of
case.
issues, but
Yeah,
in
that's
case.
good.
I would say, I'd like to, there's three that I you know, I'd like to use what I do. Let's say budget and finance negotiations. I have been following the Title IX. I'm pretty familiar with that. So those are the three that I would be interested in.
Title IX for sure. Negotiations, what do you think? Mel, does that feel okay for you, or do you?
Oh, yeah, I could.
I mean, if you want that, I'm fine with, I would take Title IX and budget and finance. Those are my interests.
I'm feeling pretty comfortable in negotiations right now.
I think that's a good thing.
Okay. All right, so, Dorothy, how are you feeling about being on budget and finance? Well, Colby's interested in being on that. I want to be on it too, so Colby's interested in
I
being
don't
on
mind
that.
not being on it.
Okay, so we'll put Colby there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then, Mel and I'll stay on negotiations. So building and bond. Vicki, you want to stay there?
Yeah.
Dorothy,
Safety?
you want to go to safety, Dorothy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll stay and say, yeah,
Okay.
that's all
All right, somebody get on the transportation committee. Vicki, that would be you.
No, I thought the chairman had to be on.
Yeah.
No, come on, you're pulling my leg.
No, I-
Seriously?
No, seriously.
Seriously.
Isn't that right, Mr. Reed?
Yes, driving bus.
Seriously.
Let's see, well, the thing is, I'm still on the, we're still on the policy review,
That's right, we simple policy review.
and I'd like to stay there.
And we need to have somebody take over Mike's spot there.
Are there gonna be any negotiations this year?
Well, we
Or
were,
this next year?
we talking about, the classified staff.
Oh, that's.
So then, depending on what they do, whether it'll be a couple of years out before we really have to do anything with negotiations.
So we have policy review, we have Vicky on that. And that other spot filled, we have book review, we have a spot yet to fill. Transportation, we still have a spot to fill.
Okay,
Building
so,
bond, we still have a spot to fill.
so Vicki said she would take book review, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so then we still have transportation, policy review. You'll do that?
I'll
Okay.
take building bond.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a great, interesting topic. I just don't want to be on every committee. Okay, so then we need, okay, come on. All right, so let's see if I got this
Book
right.
review and policy are the two.
So Vicki and Dorothy are gonna keep book review. They're gonna do book review. So we need somebody to fill in with policy, for Mike, and I could do that. I can do that. Because you guys are halfway into it already,
Yeah,
right?
there's quite a bit done.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so the standing committees are as follows. Policy review, Ms. Cornish and Ms. Appleby. Book review, Ms. Rhodes, Ms. Cornish. Transportation, Mr. Finley and Ms. Rhodes. Safety, Mr. Finley, Ms. Rhodes. Title IX, Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Reynolds.
Oh, take me out of some of those.
Are you just hearing your name?
They're too much, you know?
Now that someone's never
But
knew.
Mrs. Appleby, she needs to be in the
So we have, for Title IX, Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Reynolds. For building bond, Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Cornish. For negotiations, Mr. Finley, Ms. Appleby. For budget and finance, Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Appleby.
You say policy, is that one not on here?
It's not on.
Well, we
It's not
sort
on
of
there.
created it
We
because we're
created
doing
it.
we're doing a policy review book with, look with Montana School Boards Association.
Okay, so who's on
Me and, myself and Vicki. Vicki started it, Mike was on it, and, so I'll step in.
You sure the transportation doesn't have to have a board chair?
I don't know, Vicki did it before I ever got there. Doesn't have to have, doesn't have to.
It meets twice a year.
All right, so you're putting me back on there. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Okay, guys.
So that's, the standing committees are now set. the standing committees passed or voted.
Also,
I'll second.
Discussion? Call for the question. And if somebody really hates it or can't do it, we can sub somebody in. Because there have been times when somebody had to be absent when the meeting had to take place, and we can sub somebody else in. I just need a little heads up to organize somebody to sit in. Okay, so just further discussion. Call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. All right, adjournment. Thank you for hanging in. Okay, so let's go on to board committee assignments.
Okay, when board committees are assigned by the chairman of the board at the reorganizational meeting, in the past, it's been understood that the superintendent is part of these committees. And one of the things, reasons for this is because the day-to-day operations of the school district are entrusted to a person in my position. And if things were to come up that had to deal with litigation that the school district was currently undergoing, or contractual issues, it is most likely that an administrator in charge would have knowledge of that stuff and would be able to steer the committee away from the pitfalls of some of the discussion and stuff that may try to take place during that committee that may influence that litigation or influence the or break the rules of negotiated agreements and contracts. So with that, I just wanted to make sure that you know, the board is still in agreement with that past practice, and to make sure that we're clear on who the chair of the committees should be in order for the committees to call meetings and for meetings to be posted and met.
I'd like to say too that according to our board policy, committee work happens when the board directs it such. And Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, but committees don't meet without being directed from here at this table by us to say, okay, we feel like we need some more look into this. Other than the budget committee, which is also a policy related thing. So when work comes up that requires a committee for the bus negotiation or whatever those things are, we always are directing that out from right here. So if that makes the understanding of what everybody knows.
I'll move that we appoint Superintendent McGee to act as chairman for each standing committee of the board.
I'll second.
Discussion?
It seems odd that we would appoint a chair when we don't even have a committee yet.
Well, we have some standing committees that are in the board policy that we have that every year are set
Yeah,
up.
but I mean, we don't have members.
That's set up at the beginning of
The reorganizational
Yeah.
meeting.
at the very first meeting after the election.
The budget committee is set up.
Mm-hmm. Back in May, we went around the table, remember, and we said, now, everybody's been serving on committees. Who wants to be on what committees?
Oh, yeah,
And
I know that.
Yeah, you and I are on negotiations.
Transportation and all that.
Yeah.
business.
I guess the point here being that, that we as a board feel that Mr. McGee needs to be involved in every committee.
Oh, he's the one that brings the stuff back to the board, so it makes sense.
And he would be involved in every committee
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
You know, that he's there at every committee meeting, whatever it might be, whenever we deem it necessary. But that in that process, then he is the one that's in charge of that committee, running the meeting of that committee. Which he's always done in the past.
Yeah, I think it would happen anyway, but I would say maybe the committee would have at that particular time, maybe the committee would have a different, notion, I don't know. I think they should have that option.
Well, but the bottom line is that it is a committee appointed from the board. And because each of us cannot be there, you know, I mean, that's the whole purpose of having committees, is that only two of us are gonna serve.
Hmm.
But that we have the same individual that's serving on each one of those committees, which would be Mr. McGee.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is, because he's aware of the school, what's going on is in all aspects of that process, then he's the one that initially is going to bring, I mean, not that we're not going to, those that served on each of those committees aren't going to be able to add to what they're gonna come back and report on, but that he's just kind of that main individual that's gonna gel it all together.
Sure.
Yeah, I think,
And just a point of clarification, one of the things that we have transpiring right now is an attempt to have a Title IX committee meeting,
Attempt to have what now?
a Title IX committee meeting.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with that situation is that when the Title IX OCR complaints that have been heard by OCR are still active, it's considered active litigation that the school district is still involved with OCR. So because of that, the school district has an attorney hired on to address those concerns with the Office of Civil Rights, and, does not want the school district interfering with the active litigation that is currently taking place on the part of the school district as we work through the voluntary resolution agreements that we are currently undertaking with the Office of Civil Rights. And if, you start calling these committee meetings, it could begin to interfere with the processes in place that the attorney has established with OCR to try to bring resolution to those concerns that a citizen has brought forth.
Well, I would assume each committee would appoint your chairman anyway, but I still think they should have the option.
I just think it's nice, on the committees that I've been on, you just kind of think, okay, what do we do now? Where if you've got the superintendent there, he can say, here's the process, here's what we need from you, and here's how you do it.
Yeah.
I think that helps. And you can answer questions too.
Well, he'd be there
Yeah.
irregardless, so.
I don't think people care if there's a chairman from them, they just want to be able to put their input in.
If a board member wants to step up and act as chair of the committee, I have no problem with stepping aside and allowing that to take place, because in the active board meetings, you're the elected officials. In the active committee meetings, you are the elected officials. You do have power and authority in both of those instances, and I don't want to usurp that power. If a trustee says, no, I want to step up and run the Budget and Finance Committee, I have bowed to that. I have allowed Pat to step up in Budget and Finance in the last year and have her run the meetings, but I'm here,
That's right.
So,
Mhm.
so
And that's-
please understand.
And I'm
that's
just going from
Yeah.
what we do here in the board. We form a board, and then we organize.
Mhm.
And so I would say that we got a committee, we get the committee, and then we organize. Rather than-
So going into the committees, the superintendent would be the chair, but has to reorganize
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. That's a good point. That's actually a very solid point of how committee work can be treated, so that, from year to year, there's at least some sort of a transitional flow to the order of business.
Yeah. And I assume that you would be because everybody knows that you're here day in and day out, and know all the ins and outs, that you would be the chair. So, but
Well, I guess I would like to say, and I'll get to you, Mr. Bryan, but I'd like to say that maybe the motion doesn't necessarily have to be that he is the chairman of every committee, but that he's included in every committee. And maybe that would be the language that would,
I would think that would be understood.
yeah.
But who would determine when the committee would meet then? Would that be the board?
Well,
The
Mr.
committee is
Be the
McGree
chair,
brings us
of
an
the
instance
committee
or.
two members
Yeah.
for the board directing
Okay.
it to happen.
Okay.
So, Mr. O'Brien, you had your hand up.
Yes. A couple things about committees. We did face a little bit of litigation in 08 or 09 about restructuring what took place in the organizational meeting. We were advised by the school attorney Elizabeth Keleva that you could not restructure what had taken place at the reorganizational meeting in May after your trustees were sworn in. And committees and chair and vice chair were appointed. Those changes could not take place after the board had made those appointments. Changes could not take place until the next organizational meeting, which would occur in May again. That's one point I wanted to bring up to the board. Your own attorney, who I think we still have, has advised us not to attempt to make changes for legal issues. Another point I'd like to make is Mr. McGee brought up a Title IX committee meeting that has been requested. Last month, Mr. McGee reported to the district in a district meeting that there were no Title IX issues within our district. Everything was resolved. We were in full compliance with all Title IX issues. And tonight he has said something different to what he said last month. He spoke about litigation, attorneys, issues that could be sensitive. I'm a little confused on that one. Trustees, for instance, as appointed to committees, should chair the committees. Trustees, if any trustee requests a committee meeting, there should be not a blink of an eye. They are the elected people who run the business of the district. And last but not least, if you're going to appoint anyone to a committee, they need to be honorable.
Look, this is really simple to me. As I've told all of you, I know how schools are run. I know how they've been run for years, and I know how this works. You don't want to talk about Title IX allegations. I'm going to leave the Title IX out of it. They're not allegations, they're resolutions. We've had problems with them. They're admissions of guilt. We've had them under Mr. McGee's watch. If you try and give control, is what I call it, to Mr. McGee as a chair, that's exactly what he's asking for. You will be, for the second time, breaking ground that no board in this country, I repeat, in this country, does. There is no board in this entire country that will give a headmaster or a superintendent the chair of a committee. It's just not what happens. So I'm here to tell you, as again, to try and communicate to you that if you do this, you are breaking ground again, doing something again that a board does not do in this entire country. I want to make that clear. It's very simple. I appreciate Mrs. Appleby's comment. I have no problem with Mr. McGee being part of the budget and finance of if he wants to sit on a committee. I find that a little odd too, because the committees actually report to the superintendent, which he has control to deal with. But to actually ask for yourself to be a chair of a committee is completely against how this whole country works with boards and committees. And that's a fact. That's it. I'm done.
Vicki, did you have something else to say? You look like you were going to talk.
The bottom line is that every committee that I've served on in the last 12 years, the superintendent, or because of course Mr. McGee was not here when I first started, but the superintendent has in fact been in charge of that committee. I don't know if we officially called him because that's all I dealt with is male superintendents as the chairman, but they were basically, as Dorothy said, in charge of the meeting so that we understood what we were talking about. I mean, in all of the different ones, in the bus transportation committee, I've never served on the Title IX committee, but in negotiations and all of those, as a trustee, I am there, yes, in an official capacity, but really, I am looking to the superintendent for some guidance on making sure that I stay within my legal limits as a trustee, all of those particular things that I mean, I have a day job, and it doesn't include totally understanding every bit of legality that goes with running a school district. That's why I appreciate the fact that, at least in the years I served on the board, that we have, not just Mr. McGee, but other superintendents, were always there, always helping us so that we understood what the committee was talking about. You know, and I think what Mel's trying to point out, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mel, is that it's always been basically just understood. We didn't, it wasn't anything that we had moved to, you know, in a, like we have right now as a motion that the board has actually accepted, but it was basically always understood that the superintendent was in charge, because that's his job, is to help guide those committees so that we have that proper information that is gleaned in those particular meetings brought back to the board, so that we as a board can decide what it is that what issue that we're going to address.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's
you know,
right.
I mean, and
But, you know, any reasonable person is going to look to him for, you know, a little guidance here and there, and be smart enough to parse out and make his own decision.
right. So I honestly
Whether
don't think.
he's the chairman of the board or not.
I honestly don't think that in any of the committees that I've served on, I've not felt like that I was there. I mean, was I asked to be the chairman of that committee? No. I think we met as a committee, you know, and
I don't remember us ever electing a chair.
there was never, not that I remember, but in all reality, I felt like the superintendent helped run the meeting to a certain degree. Yes, I think everyone that was involved in the meetings that I've been at. So it's not necessarily like a particular board meeting where we all meet and we have a particular chair and vice chair that run the meeting, but that we all have the opportunity to, you know, that are serving to participate, but certainly are getting guidance from the superintendent.
I think if he attends all the committee meetings, like she and I are talking about, I don't remember us ever electing the chair of the committee. But you're there to guide us, to answer questions, and we come up, because on these committees, the budget committee, whatever it's on, we don't know all the legalities, we don't know all the laws against something, we don't know the whole situation. And we're there for input, but we need you there to just kind of, like I said, answer questions.
Well, I think it's important that, I mean, I suppose a superintendent can make the choice not to be at certain, I mean, I don't know, could make a choice not to be at committees, but then, on the other hand, they're doing a disservice to the district, because where's the cohesiveness?
Yeah.
How do you know, it's like, you know, one part not moving because the other part doesn't understand, so that, you know, I want the superintendent there at every committee meeting.
You get a lot more done if you've got someone like the superintendent there to answer your questions. Sometimes they're not very big questions, but if you don't have somebody to answer them, then the meeting's at kind of standstill.
I have to say, I'm going into year 4 of budget and finance, and it's still fairly murky.
Yeah.
And you have to repeatedly hear the stuff, see this, see that, so that you, every time you learn, and some of the committees almost never meet. We've never met on half of the committees. There's only a handful of them that actually
Like
have.
book review, it's dependent upon a complaint of whether we have to cull a book out of our library.
I don't even know one.
You know, we haven't had that many complaints about, you know, what kind of books we have.
Actually,
Sorry,
I'm just looking under our policy manual here, number 1210, the Board of Trustees. says the chairperson is permitted to participate in all board meetings in a manner equal to all other board members, including the right to participate in debate and to vote. The chairperson may not make a motion, but may second the motions.
And
So,
that's referring to me, or whoever sits in this position at regular meetings. I'm not sure whether that officially applies to committee work.
But on the other hand, that verbiage, we could understand that particular person, that the chairman, and right now the motion is that we have Mr. McGee, or the superintendent, but Mr. McGee is the superintendent right now, act as the chairman. Well, the chairman basically runs a meeting. You can vote, but you can't open up a motion, can you?
Nope, supposedly not, but I
So
can second a motion.
Right, so the chairman, even though that's, his name, doesn't, is really there to run the meeting. That's what that verbiage is saying, is that they're running the meeting, they're kind of the ones that are, guiding it.
It's the go-to person.
Yeah. But there's certain things that they can't do, and one of those things is they're not supposed to open a motion. So, really, they're there for guidance.
Mr. Bryan?
I'd like to comment just on a few things. Number one, committee meetings do not make motions and vote. They're only informative. They do not require a chair. Number two, Mrs. Rhodes stated she had attended a book committee meeting in the past because there was an issue with the book. If there's an issue with the contract, it's possible that the negotiation committee could meet. If there's an issue with the budget, it's possible the budget committee could meet to give resolutions to the board to try to resolve those issues. Right now, I see that we have several Title IX issues. And in my experience living here for several years, there's never been a Title IX committee meeting ever in this district. And if there's a time now, we've got conflicting information at the board level from last month to tonight. I think it's high time there should be a committee that met to discuss what is on the table with our school district and the Office of Civil Rights. And I think it would be imperative to have the superintendent attend those meetings as an informational tool for the district to the trustees that are on the committee.
I guess I'm going to say that I don't believe that that's committee work. I believe that's work for a regular meeting right here at the table.
Now,
Just to answer.
has there ever been a Title IX committee meeting?
That's my
Just
personal
to
opinion.
answer the question with regard to the current issues with Title IX and the reason the committee has not met with regard to it. The reason it hasn't met with regard to it is because a person in this community who filed the Title IX complaints jumped beyond the school district's board policies, ability to manage situation that is grievable. If there is a problem in the district, there's uniform grievance and complaint procedure that is set up by the school district. When that chain of ability to deal with it was jumped and elevated directly to the Office of Civil Rights, Department of Education in a complaint, it at that point in time turned into a litigious situation for the school district, which required the school board to be notified that that had occurred, which required the school board to then take action to bring in an attorney and to try to resolve those things. Now, in that process, it was, as it was explained to the board then and is now, there was a request for mediation. The complainant refused mediation and wanted it to be anonymous. Therefore, when they refused that, it kicked it directly to a voluntary resolution. And in the voluntary resolution, it was very clear that it was not an admission of guilt, and there has never been an admission of guilt. It has been completely and totally a process of working with the Office of Civil Rights to their satisfaction. Now, in the issues that have come up recently, we have answered all of OCR's issues, all of their concerns. It was recently where I was noticed a week ago that OCR wants to have an additional conference call on the matter. They want to tie this up, but they need to have one further conference call. So with that, that opened the can of worms for it to continue. And we are still moving to see what it is that the further questions they may have in the matter.
Mrs. Appleby,
All right, hold
So-
on.
I mean, how many Title
Hold
IX
on,
committee
hold on,
meetings have we
hold
had
on.
since we have issues?
We're getting
don't.
completely off topic here of what this motion is about and what the intent for discussion, public discussion is about when a motion's opened up. We're getting way off track here. So, here's the thing. The motion currently is to have Mr. McGee as chairman of every committee. And I can hear from at the table here that we have some differing of opinion about whether that wording is appropriate. So I would like for us to get, I'm going to call for the question, and I guess what I would like to say is.
Can't there be more discussion?
I'm calling for the question.
It's unbelievable.
But there's more discussion here we'd like to talk about.
I'm calling for the question.
You're not gonna let me talk on what
No,
you just
not
said.
gonna let you talk. We're getting
Just-
way off topic, okay?
No,
And
he made the topic.
This is a
I'd like to
meeting-
respond
this
as a
is
citizen to
meeting-
what he said.
This is a meeting
Yeah,
held
we are
in
off topic.
public,
We are off
not
He
a
talked
town
about the
hall.
Title IX committee, and
We
it's
were
on the
given a
topic of the
response, we'd
Title
like
IX
to
committee.
respond back to
Excuse me, gentlemen, do
Mr.
you need me to have you removed from the
Oh.
meeting?
No,
Then
no.
please let the meeting continue, all right? And see what happens, all right? If you guys keep
But
after it, I'm calling the sheriff and I'm gonna have you removed.
Can I ask you one other?
No. I
question?
called for the question.
Okay.
Okay, so, the motion is to have Mr. McGee be the committee chair of all the committees. So, if you are in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, so that motion does not pass. So, do we need to make a new motion?
I think so, I just think we need to reword that a little bit. I think we need to say something like, we need to appoint Mr. McGee as the district representative? Or
Liaison or something?
I don't know, what do you think, Mel? How could we word that, so?
Well, definitely, he needs to be
Do we have to make a motion, or can we just direct him to attend?
Well, I
the
think
meeting?
sometimes it would be good to have a motion, because then it's a public record that we have made that move as a board.
And we're only talking about it now because somebody's challenging about it. So I think we need to have some sort of motion.
I think it- yeah, I think it needs to be
And while I'm
adopted.
not supposed to open the motions, maybe the wording can be that that he is part of every committee.
That sounds good.
So somebody make that motion or some sort of motion in that manner.
I move that the superintendent be in attendance at all, well, he'll be a member of each standing committee.
There we go.
There you go. I'll second that.
Okay, so now discussion. All right, Mr. O'Brien, one time, okay?
You're changing your organizational actions from the meeting you had in May, and you were legally advised a few years ago not to do this.
Okay,
Now, I understand
we
you.
say that, we're good.
I
Okay,
would,
we're
I'm
good.
not done.
Good.
Can I go on? I don't want to be
No,
removed.
We've already heard that, we've already heard you say that.
I just want to
You got
advise
something
you
else to
that
say?
your own attorney has advised this district not to take actions like this.
Is that true?
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Can we have a little honor up there?
So, any other discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion that Mr. McGee is part of every standing committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Okay.